Hello, this is Wendy Vance from the Northwest Regional Field Office. I'm originally from Montana, grew up on a ranch with some beef cows, have enjoyed working for NASA the last 20-some odd years. In this presentation, I will be talking about the steps involved to pre-screen new segments. We'll go through identifying the operator, assigning track letters, and completing the screening form. You should also familiarize yourself with Chapter 5 of the Ag Surveys Interviewer's Manual for instructions on pre-screening. As a reminder, the purpose of pre-screening is to become familiar with the segment boundaries, segment layout, complete the information for non-agricultural areas, and identify names and addresses of possible contacts. New segments will start with a blank slate. On the aerial photo shown, only the segment boundary will be identified. There won't be any tracks drawn off. Before making any contacts, you'll want to drive to the segment to familiarize yourself with the boundaries. Be sure to drive all the way around the segment if possible, and drive on any roads through the segment so that you have the best picture possible of what the segment contains. Be sure to make notes of your observations. This could include landmarks, road names, ditches, waterways, addresses, or names on mailboxes, or even agricultural production, such as a wheat field or corn stubble. These could all be helpful later when talking to possible operators. You may make notes on the aerial photos of landmarks and road names, but do not record any personally identified information, or PII, since we government employees love our acronyms, on the aerial photos. Our goal for June area is to identify land use for the entire segment and record an operator for each land use. For new segments, you will also receive a screening form with pre-printed information about the segment. This includes the state, stratum number, segment number, county name, and county FIPS code. If during pre-screening you need to add more names onto an additional blank screening form, you will have to write this information onto the front of each new form added. Each segment has a unique survey code located under the county name. If an operator misplaced their pre-survey mailing or didn't even receive one, they can access the segment online by entering this code into NASA's Ag Counts website. In addition to the aerial photo and screening form, your regional office will provide you with maps and corresponding listings of potential operators for each new segment. This will help you get started with contacting potential operators. As mentioned, our goal for June area is to identify the land use and the associated operator for the entire segment. Before you begin contacting potential operators in a segment, you should spend some time thinking about how you want to introduce yourself to the respondent. Explain what you are doing and why you are interviewing them. You should memorize and practice statements for why you are contacting them and why it is important to respond. Also, be sure to tell the respondent that the information you are collecting is confidential and will only be used with other reports to prepare state and national crop and livestock estimates. If you are not able to contact anyone, you cannot simply skip the interview. Review the recontact procedures in the interviewer's manual. The front page of the screening form asks two key questions to determine if the person you are talking to either operates or lives inside the segment. If the respondent doesn't live or operate inside the segment, the respondent may still be able to provide information about who is operating the land inside the segment. Let's review NASA's definition of the operator. The operator is the person that is responsible for making the day-to-day decisions, such as when and what to plant or harvest, buying and selling livestock, and when to market the commodities. The operator could be the owner, hired manager, cash tenant, share tenant, or in a partnership. If the land is rented or worked on shares, the tenant or renter is the operator. If the land is owned and farmed by the same person, the operator is pretty clear-cut. Sometimes identifying the operator and the operating arrangement may not be clear-cut, though, and may require some probing questions. In a rental agreement, one person or entity owns the land, the landlord, and allows another person to operate or farm it. Regardless of the rental agreement, the renter is the operator. Remember, if the landlord happens to live in the segment, the landlord will have their own tract for their house, and the renter will have a separate tract for the land they operate in the segment. If we record the wrong names for a tract, we're stuck with the wrong name on the record for an entire year. Here are some examples that have occurred in the past due to poor name recording. Perhaps the tract operator that was identified was actually a landlord or is a retired farmer whose land is operated by someone else who is on the list. Conversely, an operator that reports being a landlord or retired from farming, but has agricultural activities such as CRP or livestock, would also be in error if not screened correctly. Another example is an operator listed for a tract is associated with a large operation, but we didn't collect the operation name or the partners. This could cause duplicate reporting. In summary, if we don't get the right tract operator name in June, it will be incorrect throughout the year and will cause problems with follow-on sampling for other surveys. In order to avoid problems later on with having the wrong name, it is important to take time to pre-screen and thoroughly. Please record the correct spelling of every name, including middle initials if you can, address, and phone number collected. You may learn from the operator that the operation is a partnership. As mentioned, a partnership is defined as two or more persons contributing to the day-to-day running of the operation. If this is the situation, be sure to record the name and contact information for all partners involved in the operation. During pre-screening, you'll need to record the partner's information on the back page of the screening form or a separate piece of paper that is kept with the screening form. Then, during data collection, the names and addresses of partners can be added to the tract questionnaire. Maybe you'll have a case where there are two or more farm operators living in the same house, where each one operates their own farm. In that case, each should be assigned a separate tract letter, but only one of the two will account for the farmstead if it is in the segment. The reality, of course, is that not everyone can be contacted. Errors are going to happen, refusals and inaccessibles are going to occur, estimation and observation are going to be necessary. There's going to be special and unique situations that arise. Good judgment and common sense and notes are just going to be needed to be used as we proceed. So at the end of the day, work with your supervisor or regional office and do your best. Now that we know how to define the operator, let's go back to our aerial photo. Once an operator has been identified for a given piece of land, draw off the boundaries of the land they operate in the segment on the aerial photo using your blue writing utensil provided by your regional field office. Assign a tract letter for the land they operate. We will assign letters alphabetically, starting at the beginning with letter A. Ideally, tract letters will be assigned in a clockwise manner, which helps keep order to the aerial photo. Sometimes this may not be feasible, depending on how operators are contacted and assigned. The most important part is to make sure the operator associated with the tract letter on the photo matches the operator reported on the screening form for that letter. If an operator has more than one operating arrangement in the segment, say both an individual operation and a partnership operation, each operating arrangement needs its own tract letter. In addition, we will record the tract letter and contact information for that operator on our screening form. The screening form only has a place for one operator, but if you are able to obtain the names of partners, Please record them next to the operator's name or in a blank space on the screening form, such as the back page as mentioned before. Record as complete an address as you can for each tract, even if it is not a person. For instance, if the tract is a church, record the name of the church, the street address, city, and state. As we identify more operators in our segment, we will continue to assign letters to each operator in order. Do not skip any letters. If all 26 letters in the alphabet have been used, you can start using double letters, such as AA, BB, CC, and so on. If you have a segment which has more than 52 tracts, you can continue with triple letters, triple A, triple B, triple C, and so on. Our systems do not allow us to have more than 99 tracts in a single segment, which would be up to tract letter UU. That's 4 U's. If you run into this problem, please contact your supervisor for strategies as to how we could potentially consolidate some of the tracts into a larger non-ag tract to conserve letters. When you're recording tract letters on the photo, any tract letters that could potentially be confused with others should be underlined. However, like what you see in this photograph, it doesn't really hurt to underline everything that you have. In order to simplify procedures for screening urban and residential areas that are less likely to have agricultural activity, use the half-acre rule. If you come across a residential parcel or group of residential parcels that are each 1/2 acre or less in size and has no visible ag activity, you can assume it is a non-ag tract. If you have a group of residences that are 1/2 acre or less, they can be lumped into one non-ag tract. If you have visible signs of ag activity, then screening should occur no matter the size of the lot. Ag activity could include livestock, such as horses, chickens, or bees. For residential parcels over 1/2 acre, with no visible ag activity present, you should still interview the operator using the screening form. Now you may have a segment with a residential neighborhood with parcels that are less than 1/10 of an acre in size. If you run into situations like this, you can group together the non-agricultural residential homes into a single tract. We will then complete the screening form by asking the operator the questions at the top of the screening form. Some regions will have column 7 for PIGA land, that's Public Industrial or Grazing Association land, on the screening form, and other regions will not. You just need to ask the questions that are listed on the screening form you have. These questions on the screening form refer to all land in the operating arrangement, regardless if the land is in the segment or outside of the segment. If the operator answers yes or don't know to any of the questions, the tract is considered an ag tract. If you are pre-screening the operator prior to data collection, stop here and thank the operator for their time. Let the operator know they will be contacted again in late May or early June to collect data if they screen in as an ag tract. If you are pre-screening during data collection, you may go to the tract questionnaire directly. If all questions in columns 8 through 16 are answered no, the tract is considered non-ag, and you will complete columns 18 through 20A. These non-ag tracts can be completed during pre-screening. Again, only some regions will have column 21 listed on the screening form, and this is only completed if column 7 was answered yes. These PIGA tracts can be completed during pre-screening as well. Be sure to record the land use in column 18. Some examples are schools, roads, railroads, airports, state, county, or local transportation facilities, waste or wastewater treatment facilities, and churches. If column 20 is equal to 1, which is yes, meaning the tract has potential for agriculture prior to June 1st of next year, please make a note of the situation. Non-ag tracts that have potential for agriculture in the next 12 months will be included in follow-on samples over the next year. When completing column 20, consider the amount of work needed to have agricultural activity. Ask the operator if they plan to have any agricultural activity in the next year. If no operator is available, complete this question by observation. When making observations, consider the work or improvement needed to seed a crop. Look for agricultural buildings that could be used with minimal improvements, such as greenhouses, storage bins, and livestock buildings. If you notice a barn similar to the one in this picture, most likely the operator will not be able to house livestock without making some updates. Something to keep in mind, noted in the last bullet, tracts that do have the potential for agriculture in the next year could also be sampled for follow-on surveys. The last column required for non-ag tracts is column 20A. Values for this column can be found in the interviewer's manual or on the back page of the screening form. This value should correlate with the description you recorded in column 18. Here are the codes for column 20A as listed on the last page of the screening form. The back of the screening form will be completed after data collection, so we'll review that in another video. Pre-screening is complete once you have all land accounted for with a tract letter on the aerial photo and an associated name on the screening form. In this example, we have 5 tract letters on our aerial photo and 5 operators listed on our screening form. Don't worry if you weren't able to identify every piece of land or contact every operator during the pre-screening timeframe. You will be able to reach out to operators closer to the data collection timeframe. Since these are new segments, they have not been visited or enumerated before, and you may come across some unique situations. Consult your interviewer's manual if you are not sure how to handle federal or non-federal public land, industrial land, institutional farms, ag businesses, or multi-state operations. Be sure to let your supervisor and regional office know if there is an issue with the segment, such as the boundaries crossing county or state lines, boundaries cutting through a field, or if the segment is located in a different county than noted on the aerial photo and screening form. The regional office will let you know if any adjustments need to be made prior to data collection. If you have any questions or need clarification on the material presented here, please refer to your interviewer's manual or talk to your supervisor. Thank you very much for your time and all the work that you do. Have a great day.